LaRue Tactical makes some of the finest, higher-end ARs on the market today. But the problem with LaRue, like basically all quote-unquote Gucci tier ARs, is their price tag. Because despite being worth the cost, not everybody can spend $1,000 on a rifle. And that's what kept me from getting into a LaRue Tactical carbine in my younger years. Between college and then a basic entry-level job, I didn't really have enough disposable income to afford a $1,000+ rifle. Thankfully, the guys at LaRue Tactical brought their carbine to the masses with the introduction of their Ultimate Upper Kit. Basically, the Ultimate Upper Kit has everything a shooter needs to build a LaRue Tactical carbine except for the lower receiver itself. Yes, even the lower parts kit, all the furniture, everything. And while it's vastly less expensive than buying a complete rifle from LaRue, it's still by no means cheap. So is it worth the price difference over a basic AR upper? We take a closer look at the LaRue Tactical Ultimate Upper Kit and find out. The LaRue Ultimate Upper Kit is a direct impingement upper receiver group for the AR-15 and AR-10 series of rifles and carbines. As I mentioned before, the kit contains everything that a shooter needs to complete their rifle, carbine, or pistol build, except the lower receiver itself. Now, because there is so much in the Ultimate Upper Kit to mention, the video is going to be a little bit long, and it may at times sound like an infomercial as I list off all the components, but just bear with me. Once I give you guys the full rundown of all the components, their features and functions, then I promise we'll get to performance. Now for the video, I tested a 14.5-inch 5.56 caliber upper and a 12-inch 300 blackout upper. The 5.56 with an M-LOK handguard and the 300 blackout version in a key mod configuration. In both cases, I chose the option for flat dark earth Cerakote because I live in a sandy environment and, well, to be honest, FDE looks pretty badass. Now, when buying your upper kit, shooters have multiple options to select from, including caliber, barrel, handguard length, barrel profile, handguard interface type, and furniture color. For the 5.56 carbine, I chose a stealth profile, which is a medium contour, and for the 300 blackout version, there was only one profile available, which was a heavier one, so I chose that. As for handguard length, I chose the longest possible for each barrel length. So a 10.5-inch key mod rail for the 12-inch barrel on the 300 blackout upper, and a 13-inch M-LOK rail for the 14.5-inch barrel on the 5.56 upper. Now both upper kits were tested on an SBR AR-15 lower receiver from Palmetto State Armory, and both locked up very tight and had almost no play. Additionally, the upper was tested on several other lowers that were put in a pistol configuration, including those from Anderson, CMMG, Colt, BCM, and even a few sort of no-name polymer lowers. In every case, they were all a little bit tight, but they all functioned fine. With that said, let's start at the business end of the gun and work our way back. So at the muzzle, the LaRue Ultimate Upper Kit includes a Tranquillo muzzle brake, and in testing it was very effective. It has multiple chambers on it and 2 vertical ports at the top to decrease recoil. It was really loud on short-barreled rifles, especially for the 5.56 version. Now the brake is threaded for 1/2x28 on the 5.56 version, and for the 30 cal barrels, it's 5/8x24, aka US standard for both. Now the Tranquillo brake is actually a QD mount for LaRue suppressors, but it can be swapped out for whatever a shooter wants, provided they don't choose the option to have that brake pinned and welded to the barrel. Now the barrel itself comes with a gas block, gas tube, and barrel extension already installed. So a shooter simply needs to slide the barrel assembly into the upper receiver and tighten the barrel nut to spec to install. It's already headspaced correctly. Now to make sure that shooters don't screw up that part, the upper receiver actually includes a special barrel wrench for the included LaRue barrel nut. The nut appears to be made of a heat-treated material that looks similar to brass but is way too hard to be actual brass. Now that little wrench itself is pretty important. It has all the torque specs written on it, and it fits into a standard automotive torque wrench much in the same way that an AR-15's armor wrench does. Now the wrench is also used for installing the Tranquillo muzzle device, and it has the torque specs written on it as well. But it's the railed handguard and the way that it interfaces to the upper is where this kit really starts to deviate from a standard AR-15 and starts getting interesting. Instead of utilizing a standard handguard retainer or a barrel nut to secure the handguard to the upper, LaRue instead uses 4 machine bolts in a square pattern that thread directly into the receiver itself. Think the Daniel Defense Mark 18. Now this is great, as it means the upper and handguard function as a monolithic rail and are aero straight, ultra rigid, and totally free-floated since the handguard has no direct contact with the barrel. This provides a solid increase to accuracy, plus shooters can mount backup sights, lasers, or whatever they want to the handguard, and be confident that it will retain zero. Additionally, the handguard and the upper's rails are numbered for easy remounting of optics and accessories. Now, the only downside of this setup is that shooters can't utilize their own handguards later, since it has a proprietary interface. But that's fairly minor, given that most shooters won't want to replace it anyway. Now, inside the upper, the LaRue kit features a standard mil-spec bolt carrier group, which is M16 pattern. This is great news for shooters who either own a transferable select fire lower or simply want a bolt carrier group that's a little more durable. Above the bolt carrier group, the LaRue upper includes a standard mil-spec charging handle. However, I replaced mine with a Radian Weapons Raptor because I like the additional purchase it gives me, and because I was running a Silencer Co. Saker 762 suppressor provided by Silencer Shop, it greatly decreased the amount of blowback I received to my face when running the gun nose to charging handle. Now, below this in the lower receiver, the Ultimate Upper Kit includes a LaRue MB-TS2 trigger kit, meaning it's an incredibly crisp two-stage trigger with a break that almost feels like a single stage. Now, I'd go in a lot more detail on this, but I already did a video on this a few months ago, so if you want to know more, head over to that video. Below this trigger is LaRue's proprietary pistol grip, which seems heavily influenced by the grips on target handguns. As such, it features an enlarged palm swell to better fill the shooter's hand, as well as a thumb rest and aggressive molded stippling for better weapon control when the grip is either wet or oily. Behind all that, the kit features another unique LaRue component, their rat stock. The rat stock is a very clever design that incorporates several great features without being unnecessarily bulky or expensive. For example, the stock features a rubberized pull ring for quick length adjustments and a quick unlock feature that allows shooters to rapidly remove or install the stock in seconds. Also, the buffer tube is numbered for ease of repeatability. Additionally, the stock features both half-inch sling loops and ambi-QD slots for attaching whatever sling a shooter prefers. Lastly, underneath its rubberized butt pad, the stock features a full cleaning kit. All you need to release it is a single cartridge and to depress a small button at the rear. It's actually a really clever concept and a very solid stock. And surprisingly, the cleaning kit doesn't rattle at all in the stock. All right, now that I've showcased basically everything the upper kit includes, and I know it's exhaustive and I'm sorry, let's talk about performance. To get a more comprehensive review of the upper's accuracy, like I mentioned before, I tested two different calibers, 5.56 and 300 Blackout. Now, both were tested with at least 3 brands of ammunition and multiple bullet weights. For the 300 Blackout, I used both sub and supersonic rounds. In both instances, 3 10-shot groups were averaged to find the barrel's accuracy. The testing procedure consisted of firing from a Lehman sandbag with a Lehman bag jack at 100 yards. Each round was fired roughly 5 seconds apart to allow the barrel to sufficiently cool between shots. Now, just like with the WBP Fox, I utilized a Nikon Black Force X1000 with some worn tactical scope rings. This was basically to minimize shooter error by using high magnification. Now, for the 300 Blackout, 220 grain subsonic rounds from HPR were tested, along with 110 grain VMAX supersonic rounds from Hornady, and finally 200 grain Winchester Deer Seasons XP rounds. Hornady proved the most accurate at 0.67 inches on average, with Winchester's ammo at 0.71 and Federal at 0.8. Now, this was from a 12-inch barrel, and it is very, very impressive considering that's still sub-MOA accurate. As for reliability, Hornady and Federal ammunition ran flawlessly. This was both suppressed and without a can installed. But the longer, heavier rounds from Winchester struggled a little bit when ran without a suppressor. But once one was installed, all the issues disappeared entirely. Now, as for the 5.56, the ammunition tested consisted of 55 grain full metal jacket from Winchester, 62 grain green tip ammunition from Federal, which is a government contract ammo, I believe, as well as 62 grain Hornady ammunition, 75 grain match grade ammunition from Hornady, 77 grain match grade ammunition from SIG Performance ammo, and lastly, 77 grain PDX-1 ammunition from Winchester. The majority of these rounds were sub-MOA, with only the 62 grain ammunition from Federal and Hornady being an exception, though I suspect that's because the twist rate of the barrel was not compatible with that grainage. As for reliability, it was yawn-inducing, with 350 rounds fired of the 55 grain ammunition from Winchester without any malfunctions whatsoever, and an additional 150 rounds of various ammo weights and ammo types from those other manufacturers, all without a single malfunction. But before we wrap up, let's get the actual accuracy numbers from those rounds. So the 55 grain ammunition full metal jacket from Winchester grouped at 0.92 inches where the 62 grain rounds from Federal, these are the green tip ones, grouped at 1.33 inches, and the 62 grain rounds from Hornady at 1.21. Not that impressive. However, the 77 grain rounds from SIG grouped at 0.56 inches, and the 75 grain rounds from Hornady grouped at 0.61 inches, and finally, the 77 grain rounds from Winchester, the PDX-1 rounds, 0.7 inches. Much, much better. Clearly, this barrel prefers those heavier grain rounds. I mean, overall, LaRue's Ultimate Upper Kit lives up to its name. With a price tag as low as $792, LaRue lowers the cost of entry on his high-end ARs to something that most shooters can afford, especially when paired with an inexpensive, but still high-quality mil-spec lower like those from PSA. Look, I understand that with ARs at record low prices, there's going to be plenty of guys out there who take a look at this thing and say, yeah, it's not worth the extra money, it's overpriced, this, that, and the other. But the reality is, LaRue's Ultimate Upper Kit is their company's response to those falling prices. Simply put, shooters can get all of the same reliability and accuracy of a LaRue tactical rifle and all the same great features on it that shooters expect from a modern top-tier rifle for a fraction of the cost. In my experience, LaRue's Ultimate Upper Kit is the cheapest way for shooters to get into the high-end AR market without having to eat ramen noodles for 6 months to comp the cost. So if you can handle a torque wrench, and Legos aren't beyond your capabilities, LaRue's Ultimate Upper Kit is the cheapest way and the best way to get into a sub-MOA carbine laden with awesome features. And after all, it's a great looking gun and a hell of a performer. Thanks guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and you might even get some Dillo dust for more Burst Review.